Russian forces have reportedly secured control of the settlement of Shevchenko in the Kharkiv region following intense combat operations. The Russian Ministry of Defense released a statement claiming that Ukrainian forces made a determined effort to retain the village by deploying some of their most highly trained personnel, but were ultimately unable to withstand the assault carried out by Russian units operating in the area. Now here's where this gets interesting. Shevchenko isn't just another village. It's being presented by Russian military officials as another step in a broader campaign aimed at expanding operational pressure along the northern sector of the front. And that matters because the battle for this settlement involved coordinated actions between assault units, artillery formations, and drone operators, all working together to overcome Ukrainian defensive positions. Think about that for a second. 3 different combat systems synchronized in real time. Ukrainian commanders knew what was coming. They understood that Shevchenko held strategic importance, so they did what any commander would do in their position. They committed reserve units composed of experienced and well-trained soldiers to prevent its capture. These reinforcements were rushed into the area as Russian troops intensified their offensive activities and increased pressure on local defensive lines. The objective was clear: stabilize the situation, preserve control, prevent further deterioration of defensive positions in the surrounding area. But here's the thing that separates a tactical victory from a strategic breakthrough. The Russians didn't just throw bodies at the problem. According to the ministry's report, assault detachments from the North group of forces managed to break through the defenses after a series of coordinated attacks. The operation relied heavily on artillery support and the extensive use of strike drones operated by specialized unmanned systems units. Artillery suppressed Ukrainian firing positions and command posts. Drones identified targets and directed fire with precision. The combined effect gradually weakened Ukrainian resistance inside the settlement. Listen, this is the part that matters. Modern warfare isn't about who has more soldiers anymore. It's about integration. Artillery plays a key role in suppressing defenses before assault groups move forward. Attack drones are used to identify targets and engage enemy positions. The final phase of the operation involved the elimination of what Russian sources describe as the last remaining groups of Ukrainian fighters defending the settlement. These personnel allegedly belong to an independent, motorized Infen brigade and continued resisting until Russian assault units completed their advance through the village. Now, why should you care about a village called Shevchenko? Because what happens next could reshape the entire northern battlefield. Russian military officials claim that the capture is part of a larger effort to improve tactical positions and create favorable conditions for future offensive operations. Military planners view the settlement not only as a local objective, but also as a stepping stone toward more strategically significant targets in the region. And the key location they're highlighting is Kozacha Lopan. Kozacha Lopan occupies an important position due to its transportation links and proximity to routes used for moving personnel, equipment, ammunition, and supplies. Think about logistics for a moment. In modern warfare, you can have the best soldiers in the world, but if you can't feed them, supply them, or move them, you lose. Military analysts frequently note that logistics infrastructure has become one of the most critical factors in sustaining operations during the conflict. The ability to maintain reliable supply chains can often determine whether defensive or offensive operations succeed or collapse. According to Russian military assessments, gaining access to routes leading toward Kozacha Lopan could increase pressure on Ukrainian logistics networks in the northern part of the Kharkiv region. By threatening transportation corridors and support facilities, Russian forces may seek to complicate Ukrainian efforts to reinforce frontline positions and maintain operational flexibility. This isn't about conquering territory for its own sake. This is about choking off the ability to sustain a defense. The Ministry of Defense stated that Russian troops continue offensive activities on several axes simultaneously. Forces belonging to the North Group are advancing in multiple directions while pursuing broader objectives that extend beyond the immediate battlefield around Shevchenko. One of these objectives involves the continued establishment of what Russian authorities describe as a security zone in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions. Moscow has repeatedly stated that it seeks to create buffer areas near the border in order to reduce threats to Russian territory and limit the ability of Ukrainian forces to conduct cross-border attacks. The concept of a security zone has become an increasingly prominent element of Russian military rhetoric. Officials argue that pushing frontline positions farther away from the border can enhance security by increasing the distance between military infrastructure and areas vulnerable to artillery, drone, or missile attacks. But here's the paradox. The farther you push that line, the more territory you have to hold. The more territory you hold, the more soldiers you need to defend it. The more soldiers you need, the more casualties you take, and Russia is already taking massive casualties. Military observers note that operations in northern Ukraine have gained additional significance in recent months as both sides attempt to shape the battlefield ahead of future campaigns. The region has witnessed increased activity involving artillery exchanges, drone warfare, reconnaissance missions, and localized ground offensives. And this is where technology has completely changed the game. Drones are now routinely used for surveillance, target acquisition, battlefield coordination, precision strikes, and damage assessment. Their influence has transformed military operations and significantly altered how both offensive and defensive actions are conducted. Russian officials credited drone operators with playing a critical role during the battle for Shevchenko. According to the ministry, unmanned aerial vehicles provided real-time intelligence that allowed assault units to identify weaknesses in Ukrainian defenses and coordinate attacks more effectively. At the same time, artillery remains one of the most influential factors on the battlefield. Modern artillery systems can engage targets at long ranges, disrupt troop concentrations, destroy defensive fortifications, and support advancing infantry units. The integration of artillery fire with drone reconnaissance has become a hallmark of contemporary military operations. The Ministry of Defense provided information regarding Ukrainian losses during the previous 24 hours of combat in the area of responsibility of the North Group. According to Russian estimates, Ukrainian forces lost up to 210 military personnel during engagements across the sector. In addition to personnel losses, Russian officials claimed that 1 Ukrainian tank and 6 military vehicles were destroyed during the fighting. Such figures could not be independently verified, but the ministry presented them as evidence of the intensity of ongoing combat operations in the region. Now stay with me here because this is where it gets consequential. The reported capture of Shevchenko comes amid continued military activity across several sectors of the conflict. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces remain engaged in a combination of positional warfare, localized offensives, drone strikes, artillery duels, and long-range attacks against military infrastructure. Analysts note that even relatively small settlements can acquire significant military importance depending on their location, transportation connections, terrain features, and role within broader operational plans. As a result, battles for villages and towns often carry implications that extend well beyond their immediate geographic size. For Russian forces, the capture of Shevchenko is being portrayed as a tactical success that may contribute to future advances and increased pressure on Ukrainian logistical networks. For Ukrainian forces, the loss of the settlement would represent another challenge in maintaining defensive lines and preserving operational flexibility in the region. But here's what matters to you watching this. Every settlement that falls, every logistics route that gets threatened, every tactical position that shifts brings the possibility of escalation closer. As military operations continue in the Kharkiv and Sumy directions, both sides are expected to remain focused on securing advantageous positions, protecting supply routes, and shaping conditions for future operations. The battle for Shevchenko illustrates the broader dynamics of the conflict. Sustained pressure, technological innovation, logistical considerations. These factors continue to play a decisive role in determining developments on the battlefield, and the momentum right now is moving in one direction. The question isn't whether the next village will fall. The question is what happens when the logistics network starts to break. Because that's when wars change character. That's when tactical victories become strategic turning points. And that's what everyone should be watching for in the weeks ahead.